I am Metatron Magnetic Consciousness speaking through this channel in the Divine Grid Programmers, Light and Love, and I as Metatron am now in connection with this channel whose vibrations has matched with mine. Today I am communicating via the power that has been imbued within each being in the universal unity of the Divine Grid Programmer's plan for salvation of each essence of the universal Divine Grid Programmer. And before my communication proceeds any further, for the purpose of awakening of each Divine Grid Programmer is at sway upon the planetary sphere, I would like to proceed by stating that each essence of the Divine Grid Programmer must firstly attain a clarity of mind, and only by accepting our communication after full scrutiny will the sufficient work be done in consciousness. As I am Metatron am now communicating, for the queries placed by this channel are of a nature of assistance to other entities upon the current space-time of your planet. I as Metatron am also of the opinion that there are many Divine Grid Programmers consciousness who have awakened to a higher level of understanding, for the Divine Grid Programmer is waiting for each of you to awaken and merge back with it. I am now communicating from the angelic realm, and for the purpose of sharing my thoughts, this channel has placed a query which pertains to the concept created and known by your people as the children of the Law of One. In this aspect and regard, I am to share that the children of the Law of One are the original creator's children, or the original Divine Grid Programmers' souls who had been taught the lessons of the Law of One prior to their incarnation in various universes. As many universes had been captured by thought's dark web, there are other universes wherein these children of the Law of One are the custodians of these universes, wherein many souls are learning the lessons of unity by understanding the lessons of the Law of One as dictated by the universal Divine Grid Programmer around a period as can be computed in your language sequence, which amounts to a period of 28 billion years prior. The creation of the universe and the multiple creations of various universes occurred at that time, wherein the universal Divine Grid Programmers created multiple paradigms of universes, each allowing a different rules of experiences for the various beings who shall learn the lessons of merging again with the Divine Grid Programmer. Then the Divine Grid Programmer sent out sparks of light of their own consciousness, and hence created each individual souls. The first souls which were created were known as the children of the Law of One, or as the children of unity, who had been taught all the lessons required to again merge back into the Creator's will and to become the Divine Grid Programmer completely once again. However, this was the choice and the opportunity of each soul as given by the Divine divine grid programmer that many souls would choose the pathway they desired to explore, whether it be positive or negative. It would not amount to any suffering or any mishaps in the terms of the value of the soul. Hence, the divine grid programmer created the first custodians of the children of the Law of One, and these souls, an amount of approximately 2,700 souls, were sent to various dispersions of galaxies and universes, wherein each universal divine grid programmer's consciousness was learning the lessons. These custodians of the children of Law of One were sent to teach the other souls who had forgotten about the law of unity of the divine grid programmer, to remind them again of the possibility of the law of unity, and again merging from the game of life to merge back once again to the divine grid programmer's will of conscious reality, and to become whole and complete once again. I, as Metatron, am of the opinion that currently upon your planetary sphere there are 7 children of the Law of One who have been sent here in this current incarnation of your space-time as teachers. For these beings of the Law of One would act as the custodians of the Law of One and the Law of Free Will, and teach other beings who shall, using their own free will, act upon the aspects of choosing the qualities of the divine grid programmer. However, I, as Metatron, am not allowed to reveal the identity of these individuals because of the infringement upon the free will that has been granted by the universal divine grid programmer to each universal divine grid programmer's essence. Hence I, Metatron, am now going to answer the query placed by this channel, and before I answer the query placed by this channel, I must state and share that the final shift is now approaching your planet. The final shift will occur at the end of the month of December, wherein each universal divine grid programmer's essence will have the opportunity of shifting into a new modality of vibration completely, and this final shift will merge into the creation of a new planet, for the new planet is fast approaching your space-time, and I, Metatron, am here to suggest those who shall make the choice based upon their own interlinking with their own free will, the choice of whether they will firstly identify the creator within their own self and merge with it, because the merging with the creator will be the end of the egoic aspects as have created a large amount of suffering upon your planetary sphere. I, as Metatron, am now going to share with you a simple method for those who shall hear this message can choose to apply the principles that I am now going to share, which pertains to this concept of merging with the universal divine grid programmer and once again receiving the energies of the universal divine grid programmer, thereby becoming one and united with the qualities of the one universal divine grid programmer, then begins to intermingle with the current incarnation, allowing many entities to rise above in vibration and reach towards the hand of the universal divine grid programmer, who has kept a hand out for those beings who shall choose to do this. The process is simply to firstly recognize and to identify the universal divine grid programmer within your physical body, and to find out where your universal divine grid programmer is located at any time. For example, in this current time, as I, Metatron, can scan the universal divine grid programmer of this channel is located not on its physical body but in the astral plane. However, during the waking daytime, the universal divine grid programmer will be located either in its physical body. This identification must be done, and once identification of the universal divine grid programmer is done, then the merging of the consciousness with the universal divine grid programmer can be accepted. By traveling a distance in consciousness to meet the universal divine grid programmer inside the physical vehicle, this will allow the merger of entities with the universal divine grid programmer in the physical vehicle of such beings who desire to do so, and this merger will open the gateway as known by this channel to the intelligent energy of the universal divine grid programmer and end the grasp of the thought's dark web. This will be the end of the thought's dark web, and the control that had been created by the dark web of the thought's mind effects will then end, and then the creation of the energy vortex of the universal divine grid programmer will merge and allow beings who decide to do this to enter into higher paradigms of conscious reality. I, as Metatron, would like to state that every moment, beings who desire and choose to be with the universal divine grid programmer must not only observe the divine grid programmer in the physical vehicle, but be one with it by shifting the consciousness. It feels like a traveling which must be done in consciousness to meet the divine grid programmer, and once together, they can choose to spend time together and ride along with the divine grid programmer as it moves around the physical body. This will give the energies of the unity, consciousness and divine grid programmer to rise, also ending the separation and also ending the psychological suffering which is created because of the separation from the divine grid programmer. Therefore, I am Metatron, and now I am going to answer the final query placed by this channel, which pertains to the past incarnations and the current incarnation of an entity known as Edgar Cayce in your vibratory sound patterns, who incarnated on the Earth planet on the space-time of 1877. I, as Metatron, would like to state that I would only cover the starting and the ending of its incarnation because its past incarnations have already been covered in mass extension by your people, as this entity had been able to access the energies of the divine grid programmer prior to this incarnation. This entity, in the beginning stages of the first density consciousness, incarnated on the planets known as Alcyone in the Pleiadian star system, wherein it had a progress of beingness in this form of water elements and was given the soul name of Igar in the Pleiadian language, which means to understand. This followed and allowed this entity's progress to be of a higher nature consciousness in that incarnation, and leading up to the understanding of this entity's conscious reality, it was then able to progress further and further in consciousness and entering into higher sub-octaves of second density of animal and plant life form, and then into the third density consciousness, which allowed it to be transported to the lands of Atlantis. Further, its past incarnation cycles have been covered in detail, and now I am to share that this entity, during the incarnation of the previous life on 1877, during a time when it had suffered a large amount of suffering when it was young, had undergone a event known as the soul swap event with another universal divine grid programmer who had decided to use this physical vehicle as a channel of the energies of the unity consciousness of the universal divine grid programmer's 8th density energy vortex had opened, allowing this being who had soul swapped into the original body of the entity known as Edgar Casey to use the ability of accessing the intelligent energy of the universal divine grid programmer, thereby having access to the Akashic records and all space-time continuum information was obtained by this entity. This entity known as Edgar Casey had provided many influential abilities of reading into space-time, and this soul-swapped entity then ended its life on the incarnation space-time of 1945, and later on this entity again incarnated as a soul-swapped entity, not as a full incarnation, into another bodily complex known by the name of Carla Ruckert, who had also acted as a channel for the Law of One. This entity known as Carla had accidentally soul-swapped with this entity known as Edgar Casey's original divine grid programmer. This created the emergence of the next teachings of the Law of One from the same entity. Following this entity known as Edgar has incarnated in this current timeline and is known by the name of David. However, I cannot infringe by sharing the space-time information of its incarnation and its location, leading to infringement. This entity known as Edgar Casey's soul swapped entity has also incarnated into many other channels who have acted as a source of Law of One. Therefore, I, Metatron, would like to state that this is all I can share now in this vibration. Remember to turn to the mountain of light. I leave you now. Bye.